Chapter 211, Proposal and Negotiations, 2. Fifth floor, Demon Hunter Guild. Inside an office space. Tap. Tap. The rhythmical tapping sound of my fingers echoed across the office space. Opposite to me was Edward Stern's holographic image. Neither one of us spoke. What you proposed is 15% on all profits with no shares, am I correct? He was the first to break the silence. That's my initial proposal. I nodded my head in confirmation. Isn't that a bit too low? I believe 15% is extremely fair. Given that we're just borrowing your name for protection. Throughout the exchange, neither mine nor Edward's expression changed. To be a good negotiator, one needed to be a good actor. That was what I had learned throughout my life. If the other party knew about what you were aiming for, things became much easier for them. Only through deception and indifference could one make a great negotiator. That's true, but we'd also be the ones facing the backlash from this situation. Edward Stern calmly rebutted. What might you be referring to? Hearing his response, my brows knit for a split second. I then proceeded to feign ignorance. The slight twitch in my brows did not go unnoticed. Edward caught that. Whether he thought I was acting or not, I did not know. Let's not play dumb. We can all tell the potential of this magic card system of yours. However, despite its perks, it also comes with its downsides. Like for example making an enemy of all lower-tiered mages. Wouldn't the money you make up for the hate you accumulate? I quickly rebutted. With enough money, what did it matter if the lower-ranked mages left? They could easily replace them. We are a guild. We can't just screw over our own members like that. Plus, we also need to talk long-term. What if a competitor pops up on the market? Or what if the cards don't function as well as you presented them to be? Edward Stern shook his head at my response. With no emotions on my face, I calmly nodded my head. Yes, but I've also offered a discount just for your guild members on all magic cards. Even if you're hated by the lower-tiered mages, you'd make up for it with the cheaper prices for the cards. What's the discount? Selling at market price? In a pinching motion, a small gap appeared between my thumb and index finger. Just a tad bit above market price. You know that's already fair. Given the high demand coming from you guys, if we go market price we might make a loss since you'd be taking most of the production. Edward Stern shook his head. That's not good enough. Raise the profit to 17% and we've got a deal. 17%? I instantly shook my head. No, that's too much. I believe it's fair given all the backlash we will receive from this deal. Adjusting the hologram angle, Edward Stern proceeded to explain. Despite being ranked number 1 amongst the other guilds, if we suddenly come up with such a revolutionary product, the other diamond-graded guilds won't hesitate to band together to stop us. You of all people should know how the world works. Everyone is full of jealousy. Once we cement ourselves as the number 1 guild, I don't doubt that the other diamond-graded guilds would sit still and do nothing. Hearing Edward's analysis, a troubled look appeared on my face. Glancing at Edward Stern for a short moment, I massaged my forehead. I understand your troubles, but the highest I can do is 16%. Edward Stern frowned in response. This was merely acting though. In reality, he was already fine with 15%. He originally wanted to test the waters to see if he could increase the profit. It looks like he succeeded. He's still a little bit wet in the ears. Not that it was bad. He was 16 after all. 16%? Is that all? I shook my head. No, there's another condition. Another condition, what is it? Edward Stern this time frowned for real. Another condition? I want you to protect a couple of people. After a short pause, I went straight to the point. Protect? Yes, I want you to use your guild resources to protect my parents. 24/7, at all times. With the best possible security available. I made sure to emphasize the words best possible security available. Couldn't be having useless bodyguards protecting my parents. That aside, this was my main objective in this negotiation. From the very beginning, I was prepared to concede 1% for this. Despite Angelica being with my parents at the moment, she couldn't stay with them all the time. I needed her. With Everblood and Matthew still at large, I knew that my parents weren't safe. Even worse, now that the monolith was also targeting me, I knew that my parents were walking on thin ice. This deal was crucial, and I knew it. So you want the guild to protect your parents? Yes. Hearing my blunt reply, on the hologram opposite to me, Edward Stern suddenly smiled. He instantly understood everything. So he purposely baited me, not bad. To think that he purposely enticed him to ask for more profit. It seems like the flow of the conversation was not on his side. Not bad at all. In fact, he was impressed. 16% plus protection? That can be done. I smiled. Then we've got a deal. Asterisk. Well, that worked out somehow. 10 minutes after coming to an agreement on the terms of the deal, Melissa and I got out of the office. Can't believe it, you pulled it off. I guess you're not as useless as you seem. She murmured in a soft voice. She was legitimately surprised. She didn't know that I was quite talented at negotiating. That's because I was never useless, to begin with, I softly muttered. I didn't say it too loud as I wasn't really too keen on arguing with her. Fortunately for me, she didn't hear. Ding! Stopping at the elevator, I pressed the button that led to the first floor. Suddenly, a thought struck me. I quickly turned to Melissa. By the way, how long do you estimate you'd finish the product by? Melissa mused a little bit as she stared at me. If nothing goes wrong by the end of the second year. If there are complications, I'd say beginning or end of the third year. I see. This seemed to be within my estimation. Given her current rate of improvement, I'd say I would still have to wait around a year or two before the card would officially be commercially usable for the market. As long as she could solve the efficiency loss problem, the rest was a breeze. Unfortunately for her, I didn't know this, hence why she was on her own. Fortunately, thanks to today's deal, Melissa was able to procure enough funds to push the project forward. It was sort of a bonus that she got to increase the pace of the development of the product. Ding! Exiting the elevator, Melissa and I quickly got out of the building. Waiting for us outside was the same limousine as before. We quickly got on it and headed back to the academy. Like that, the negotiations came to an end. Demon Hunter Guild, top floor. Guild Master Office. Amanda sat on her father's office chair. Before her, stood her father's holographic image. You sure have some peculiar classmates. MHM. In response to her father's words, Amanda nodded her head slightly. He wasn't wrong. Are you not going to say
goodbye
to them? No. She shook her head. She would meet them tomorrow, there was no point. That's fair, I'm sorry I can't be there with you again. After Amanda's reply, for a brief moment, there was an awkward silence between the two. In response, Edward Stern quickly changed the topic. You know, with a new S-ranked dungeon appearing in one of our areas, we have no choice but to keep guard of it. It's okay, I understand. I'm used to it. A bitter smile appeared on Edward's face as he heard his daughter's response. If only I had more time. Good daughter, I will sort out the situation by the end of the month. When I came, let's have some father-daughter bonding time, okay? MHM. Great, that's great, huh? The gate is showing signs of opening, Amanda, baby. Daddy has to leave, I'll contact you soon, yes, I'm coming, love you. Love dash. Clink. Before she could reply, her father hung up. Silence descended the office space. Neatly putting her phone to the side, Amanda slumped on her chair and blankly stared at the ceiling. How many days was it that she had last seen her father? 50? 100? 200? A year? No matter how much Amanda thought about it, she didn't know. She had already lost count. Undisclosed location, far from Ashton City. Wah! Wawa! Wawa! Waves of magic energy spread across a flat field. Not minding the pressure one bit, standing not so far from the enormous gate that seemed to be the size of a large house, was Edward Stern, Guild Master of the Demon Hunter Guild. Holding onto his phone carefully, he spoke in a soft tone. When I came, let's have some father-daughter bonding time, okay? Sir, there seem to be fluctuations coming from the gate. It's spiking up repeatedly. Mid-call, an urgent voice called for him in the distance. Great, that's great, huh? The fluctuations coming from the gate are spiking up repeatedly? Edward quickly put his hand on the speaker of the phone. He did not want to worry his daughter. Turning around, he looked at the worker who had just spoken. What's the situation now? With a tablet in his hand, the worker's pupils dilated. Yes, sir. The measurement seems to be rising again. Oh my God, it's getting worse. Sensing the urgency of the matter, Edward Stern knew that he had to step in. Removing his hand from the phone, he bid Amanda farewell. Amanda, baby. Daddy has to leave, I'll contact you soon. Sir, it has risen once again. This time more than double. Once again the worker spoke. This time his whole body was shaking. Wawa. Wawa. The magical energy that was being emitted from the portal quickly spread within the vicinity. Yes, I'm coming. Sensing the changes within the environment, Edward Stern knew that he had to act fast. If the energy of the gate became too high, then the environment around them would become impossible to live in. The magical energy alone in the area would be too strong for anyone to live in, and the area would soon be turned into a no-man's land. Love you. Clink. Left with no choice, Edward had to cut the conversation with his daughter quickly. He quickly hung up. Show me the data now. Without wasting any seconds, he quickly appeared before the worker who was startled by his sudden appearance. Shh! *T, this is a lot worse than expected. Staring at the data on the tablet, Edward knew that he had to act fast. He quickly put on his suit and moved to the entrance of the dungeon. He was going to dive in. Chapter 212, Dungeon Trials 1. Bang! Goo! A pained groan escaped from my lips as I crashed against the side of the wall. I opened my eyes with some difficulty. My entire body ached. Not bad, you lasted one more minute compared to last time. On the other side of the room, Donna tied up her hair. Staring at me, she smacked her lips. It was a habit of hers that came out whenever she was satisfied. Miss, what do you suggest is the best way I can improve my strength faster? Recovering a little, I sat up and spoke up. After the fight with Thibaut back at the banquet, I had come to a powerful realization. I was weak. Purely based on my fighting strength alone, I was far from where I should be. I urgently needed to improve the mastery of my arts. They were the foundation of my strength. Unfortunately, I did not have a lot of time. With everything that I needed to do, I couldn't focus as much on training as I used to. From handling the mercenary group stuff, the company, studying for classes, and the many other things, I couldn't train as hard as before. I needed to increase my efficiency. I needed to find a way to train faster. Unaware of my circumstances, Donna thought for a moment before speaking up. Train faster? You're already improving much faster than other people at the moment. Why do you want to improve faster? If you want to increase your rank, take a potion or an earthly treasure. Donna paused and shook her head. Walking over to the side of the room, Donna took a white towel and sat down. However, I suggest against doing so. For one, it's really expensive, and two, it can only be used on rare occasions. There's a chance you might get a backlash, or it could even stunt your talent limit. If too many potions and natural treasures were consumed, there was a chance that they could permanently damage someone's body beyond repair. If such a situation happened, then there was no longer a chance for them to become stronger. That was why most people didn't just stuff themselves with potions and earthly treasures. It did more harm than good. If you're looking at it purely from a skill perspective, then the answer is easy. Just go to the time regressor machine and hone your skills there. It's the perfect place to practice your skills. That. My mouth twitched. I almost forgot about this. With me being so busy and those bastards monopolizing the place, I still did not have a chance to use that place. Had I been able to use that place, then perhaps I would have been stronger than now. You better get going, classes will start in half an hour. Checking her watch, Donna spoke up. It was already 9:30 a.m., and classes were about to start soon. In response, I stood up and patted my clothes. Fair enough. Oh right, before you go, I've got some good news for you. Suddenly, Donna recalled something. Tapping on her watch, she scrolled through a couple of files. After a few scrolls, she stopped at a specific file. Good news? My interest instantly piqued. Who didn't like good news? Congratulations. Congratulations, for what? I was instantly confused. Did I win something? I don't recall ever doing something that warranted an award. Noticing my confusion, Donna shook her head and explained. You have been accepted to the Leviathan building. You can move in by as soon as next week. Leviathan building, next week? I was instantly taken aback. Though I did expect this to happen, I didn't expect for me to move in so fast. Somehow you don't seem as enthusiastic as I thought. At my response, Donna raised her brow. Normally, when someone was given the opportunity to enter the Leviathan building, they'd be jumping up and down with joy. Yet here I was completely unfazed by the news. No, don't get me wrong, I am indeed really happy. I raised my hands in defeat. I wasn't lying when I said I was happy. Problem was that I had a lot of unfinished things back in the Manticore building. Furthermore, despite its flaws, it really was a nice place. Especially since Leo and Pram were there. The more I thought about it, the more melancholic I became. Was that sarcasm? You know that you have every right to refuse to move, right? No, I'll go. I helplessly shook my head. I'd be stupid to refuse such a place. Especially since the equipment there was far more advanced. Stumbling a couple of steps, I made my way towards the exit of the training grounds. Looks like I'll have to hasten my plans. I guess I needed to push up my plans to clear up the Manticore building soon. Before I could start that, I had to wait for Angelica to be back on my side. Since the deal with the Demon Hunter Guild was finalized, I no longer had to worry about my parents as much. Angelica could now return and join me once again. I needed her for the next part of my plans. She was crucial. See you, miss. Waving Donna
Goodbye.
and dragging my tired body away, I inwardly muttered, looks like I have to start doing some revision. Inside of a large office space decorated in gold with fine paintings all over the beige walls, in front of a large desk, sat a man. Though he did not look any older than 40, the man's hair had a mixture of black and white hair. On his face was a black goatee that reached halfway through his neck. Despite his looks, an air of elegance and authority exuded from him. Clink! Suddenly, the man tapped on his phone and dialed a number. Tut! Not long after someone picked up. The man instantly greeted him. His voice carried a hint of respect. It's been a while, Michael. Have you been doing well? Jasper rush-fied. Why have you contacted me? After a short pause, an imposing and authoritative voice rang out from the speaker of the phone. In response, a faint smile appeared on Jasper's lips. Stop playing dumb. I know a man of your caliber knows exactly why I contacted you. So you want my aid? There was a brief pause that stemmed from Jasper's voice. Not long after, the man named Michael once again responded. Jasper smiled at the response. An enemy of my enemy is my friend. Isn't that what they all say these days? What do you propose? Got him. Jasper clenched his fists underneath the table. He knew that he had caught Michael Parker's interest. Without skipping a beat, he went straight to the point. Let's form a partnership. A partnership? Yes, help me get rid of my niece. Oh. So you want me to do your dirty work? Jasper rubbed his chin and pondered. His lips curled up even more. I'm not sure if that's the correct way to word it, but yes. That's precisely it. Jasper's goal was to get rid of Emma. Despite being the current head, he had no real power. Only his brother had that authority. Jasper hated that. He also carried the Rushfield family blood. What made them so different? Jasper secretly clenched his fists beneath the desk, as he thought, it doesn't matter anymore. With his brother missing, Jasper knew that he had a chance to turn the tables in his favor. He had to deal his brother a blow now that the opportunity presented itself. This was why he called Michael Parker his brother's enemy. If I agree to this deal, what do I stand to gain from this? Throughout the whole conversation, Michael Parker's voice remained stoic. However, despite it being that way, there was no denying that he was interested. Jasper could feel it. Thus, he explained. You'll obviously get a chance to deal a big impact on my big brother. I thought you hated him, didn't you? Plus, you'll be directly removing a thorn known as my niece from your sight. Given how talented she is. Suddenly Jasper's eyes became cold. If she's allowed to grow any further, we both know how things will turn out for the both of us, right? With me aiding you from the inside, handling her shouldn't pose a problem for you. I see. What about you? What do you stand to gain from this deal? The phone became silent for a couple of minutes before Michael Parker once again spoke. Me? Jasper smiled. My son's future. Despite the Lock being the #1 academy in the human domain, they did not have access to a lot of dungeons as most of them were under different guilds' jurisdiction. Fortunately, the Lock could make up for it with its expansive connection. With many students graduating each year, they had many various connections that spanned all over the human domain. At the moment, over 1,000 students stood outside an enormous gate. In front of it were multiple men and women dressed in black with all sorts of devices in front of them. How is the energy level? Everything seems in check. Are the preparations done? With the man and women in black busily talking amongst each other, an instructor wearing a lock uniform stood before us. With his sharp eyes that were faintly hidden beneath a pair of sunglasses, the instructor looked at every student present before him. Courtesy of Liaman Guild, today, you'll all be entering the dungeon in teams, he said as he took off his sunglasses. The teams will be selected at random, and once you enter the dungeon you will be directly spawned into the environment with your team. You will all be on the same map at the same time and... Listening to the instructor, I nodded my head. Today we were going to have a real dungeon experience. Students would form a team of 6 and experience a real dungeon for the first time in their life. Not the school dungeon, but a real functioning dungeon. With the connections the lock had, it wasn't hard for them to rent out a dungeon from the Liaman Guild. A small gold-graded guild. All right, I'll send you the team list now. 10 minutes in, the instructor finished talking. Taking out his tablet, the instructor tapped on the screen. Instantly the sound of smartwatches vibrating echoed across the area. Ding! 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 Turning my wrist, I pressed on the foremost notification. == Team 4. Amanda Stern. Emma Rochfield. Eleanor Gray. == Team 7. Aaron Laneful. John Burson. Ren Dover. == Team 15. Kevin Voss. Melissa Hall. == Team 23. Jean Horton. Aaron Rhinestone. ==
Ha!
Give me a break. Checking my team list, I covered my face with my hand. To think that I would be in the same group as 2 new exchange students. Suddenly, skimming through the list, one of the teams caught my interest. Huh? Jean is with Aaron? I caressed my chin. Right, there was something like this back in my novel. I almost forgot. This was the event that would lead to Aaron proving a statement. In this event, Aaron would cement himself as the main antagonist of the tournament arc by humiliating Jean. Wasn't sure now though. Turning my head, I looked in their direction. Aaron had a provoking look on his face as he looked at Jean in the distance. On the other hand, Jean just stood motionlessly. He seemed completely unfazed by the provocation. In fact, I don't even know who his teammates are. He sure changed a lot. Had it been the old Jean, he would have immediately checked the watch and tried to establish his dominance. This time, he treated Aaron like air. This obviously didn't sit well with him as his face soon became dark. Looking at the duo, my interest peaked. I wonder what will happen between the two now. Chapter 213, Dungeon Trials, 2. Upon entering the dungeon, each respective team would be summoned to different areas of it. The goal of this trial was to accumulate as many points as possible. The points were == G, 1 point. F, 2 points. E, 3 points. D, 4 points. Boss Monster, 1,000 points. == This dungeon only had one boss monster. As such, once it was slain, that was it. The team with the most points at the end would win, and the reward for the best teams was extra credits for their courses. Naturally, there were also additional rewards. But those weren't disclosed. They were a surprise. Asterisk. Ads by Pub Future. The moment our teams were announced, I grouped up with the other members of our team. Since Aaron and I had already met beforehand, there was no need for us to introduce ourselves. We just simply nodded at each other. Nice to see you again. You too. Nice to meet you. Suddenly a bulky figure approached us with a hearty laugh. It was John Burson, our other teammate, and another person I had to look out for. He had a generic Western look with brown eyes and a tall nose. Despite knowing that he was tall, I only truly realized how tall he was once he was only a few meters away from me. I had to tilt my head upwards in order to look at him properly. You must be Aaron. It's great meeting you. I've heard a lot about you. Yes, nice to meet you. Spotting Aaron, John held out his hand in a friendly manner. She nodded her head expressionlessly. Watching the exchange, I wondered if Aaron would shake someone's hand in her first meeting. From my impression of her, she seemed to be rather cold and distant, so I wanted to know. My answer was soon answered as she shook it. You must be the famous John Burson. In the flesh. Being recognized, John once again heartily laughed. I've already met with our other teammates, they are Asim, Melody, and Duyun. Letting go of her hand, John calmed down. He then turned around and introduced her to the other teammates which he seemed to have met along the way. Asim here is a... As John was introducing the other teammates to Aaron, standing by the side I couldn't help but realize how much of an extrovert John was. Only a minute had passed since the team announcements and it seemed as though he was on friendly terms with everyone. He seemed to get along well with everyone he talked to. Or so I thought. Hello, I'm also here. It was only after a minute that I realized that I was being completely ignored. To make matters worse, I was not an unknown extra like before. My name was pretty much all over the news, there was no way John didn't hear about me. If before I could have understood, but now? It had to be on purpose. Did I perhaps offend him somehow? Recalling my previous exchanges with John, I discarded such a notion. I did not interact with him once. He also lived in a different city. How could I have offended him? Then thought suddenly struck me, perhaps he was too excited with the prospect of meeting Aaron that he completely forgot about me? Right, this seemed plausible at the moment. Now that I took a closer look at Aaron, she was in fact quite beautiful. One could argue that her looks could rival that of Amanda and the others. If it's that way, it sort of made sense. John was essentially trying to establish his alpha position by ignoring me. Since he knew about my fame, he must have done this on purpose to make himself look like the most reliable person here. Just the thought made me cringe. Hello, I'm Ren, nice to meet you. Holding back the cringe, I extended my hand and introduced myself. I wasn't that immature. Oh. I'm John. John shook my head unenthusiastically. Right after shaking my hand, he continued chatting with Aaron. His eyes were full of affection. So as I was saying, I believe that we should. Being blatantly ignored, I found my mouth slightly twitching. But that was just about it. In fact, a trace of pity flashed across my eyes as I stared at him trying to talk to Aaron. He may not know, but I knew. Such a pity, truly. I secretly shook my head. Unfortunately for him, Aaron was created by me. I naturally knew a lot about her. She is a bro, con. A pretty big one at that. He had no hopes of courting her. Asterisk. After a brief chat with the team regarding the overall plans and approach of the dungeon, we quickly entered the dungeon. Right before entering the dungeon, the other three teammates, Asim, Melody, and Duyun did a quick introduction. Hi, I'm Asim and I'm a martial artist. Hello, I'm Melody and I'm a spear user. Nice to meet you, I'm Duyun and I'm a swordsman. Hi, I'm Ren and I'm a swordsman. I naturally introduced myself as well. Despite my fame, no one actually knew how I fought. There were rarely any videos of me properly fighting with a sword. Thus I did a quick introduction of myself. After we introduced ourselves and got a general idea of the other's weapons and strength, we quickly got into formation. The current formation was John at the front, Aaron in the middle, and me at the back. By the side were the other 3 teammates. Like that we entered the dungeon. After walking for a while, John's footsteps halted. A massive barren field appeared before us. What should we do now? John spoke up. He subconsciously acted as the leader. No one protested. I couldn't be bothered to protest myself as I would stand to gain nothing from it. What was the point? What else is there to do aside from killing monsters? Turning my head I responded. To which he rebuked.
Yeah.
But where are the monsters? He had a point. There were no monsters before us. All that I saw was a barren land with nothing within sight. Just when we thought that there were no monsters, Melody stepped up. I may be able to help. You? Yes, I've got special skills that allow me to detect any living form within a given radius. Melody calmly nodded her head. An air of confidence rose from her body. John was naturally elated by the news. Really? Okay, try it. Will do. Right after her words fell, her blonde hair stood up slightly, and her eyes shone a blue hue. Schwa! Instantly I felt a gush of wind brush past me. Strange. A minute after, a frown appeared on Melody's brows. Pointing towards the distance, Melody's voice became grave. There are 15 monsters within our vicinity. What 15? I can't see them. John exclaimed, to which Melody politely responded. That's because they are currently hiding, waiting for us to ambush them. Out of curiosity I interrupted and asked, what type of monsters are they? I'm sorry, but my skill only allows me to locate the general direction of monsters nearby. I can't really tell what type of monster they are. That's fair. In response to my question, Melody shook her head. I nodded back in understanding. If she could, the skill would be quite broken. It would without a doubt be a skill that I would covet. Would make my life a lot easier. Too bad I don't recall ever giving Kevin one. So what do we do now? Hearing about a large number of monsters within the vicinity, everyone grew weary and took out their weapons. Throughout the whole time, the only one that remained calm was Aaron, who responded. I suggest we hunt the nearest monster together. Once we get the general idea of what monster is present, we can split up and work individually to gain points. If the monster is too strong for all of us to hand individually, then we should work together, if not we can split up. Since the one who spoke was Aaron, John naturally agreed. Turning around, he asked. That sounds fair, let's go with this idea. Is that okay with you all? Yes. 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 Everyone nodded in agreement. I naturally didn't disagree. This plan was reasonable. Great. Seeing this, John's confidence rose. All right, then let's do it this way. Following this, we all steadily and cautiously moved towards one of the boulders in the distance. According to Melody's skill, there should be a monster near there. Hoo! Halting his steps, John took a deep breath. Following this, his body shone and a large translucent shield appeared before him. Turning around and looking at everyone, he solemnly said, Let's go. In a different area of the dungeon. Kwang. A large explosion rang across the desolate space and a large creature fell on the ground. Standing on top of the corpse was an arrogant young man. With the air slightly blowing on his features, he looked quite handsome and dashing. Beneath him were 5 people. Ping! Moments after the young man killed the monster, everyone's watch vibrated. Points awarded, 3. Checking his watch, Aaron turned around and looked at his group. More specifically towards a certain someone within the group. He tried to provoke him. At this point, I'm practically doing everything. Help this one out, okay? We don't need baggage in our team. Despite Aaron's provocations, all Jean did was spare him a glance. Just one glance. He did nothing else. Occasionally he would appear behind a monster and quickly finish it. But in general, that was all he did. This obviously did not sit well with Aaron. Wasn't he supposed to be someone whose talent rivals that of Kevin? What happened to him? From what he read from his information, Jean was extremely talented and arrogant. He was someone who could compete with the likes of Kevin. His main target. He wanted to use this opportunity to bury Jean in hopes of provoking Kevin, but things did not seem as he had originally envisioned. From the very beginning, his target had not once acknowledged his existence. This angered Aaron to no end. Pointing at him, he raised his voice. Hey, can't you at least help or do something like dash?
Shh.
Placing his finger on his mouth, Jean looked towards the distance. Before giving Aaron another chance to speak, Jean coldly said. The boss monster is near here. In a different section of the dungeon. Bam. Spurt. Qui dash.
Ha!
That's the 15th. Blue blood sprayed everywhere, and a large thud resounded across the area. Standing next to the corpse was Kevin's cold and indifferent figure. Ping! Moments after killing the monster, Kevin's watch vibrated. Used to such a thing, he didn't even bother checking it as he turned to face another monster in the distance. Putting his hand on his face, he squinted his eyes and softly mumbled, I see the next one, looks like another ranked monster. Spurt. Extracting the sword from the corpse of the monster beneath him, Kevin prepared to attack the other monster. However. Wow, Kevin, you are so great. With eyes full of affection and adoration, a girl suddenly attached herself to him. A helpless expression appeared on Kevin's face as he tried to shake her off. Only to be completely ignored. Please let go of me. That monster was so ugly and scary that I didn't know what to do. Despite Kevin's attempts at shaking the girl off, they were all in vain. Regardless of what he did, she would come to him even more strongly. Your figure whilst fighting the monster was so dashing that I was entranced by it completely. God, how can you be so strong and handsome at the same time? The girl's name was Jessica Pavard, and ever since spotting Kevin within the group she never once let go of him. Whenever Kevin killed a monster she would shout and cheer him continuously. It was as though she was looking at her favorite idol. What the fuck is going? Standing by the side, Melissa's mouth twitched. What was this crap? Whatever Kevin did, Jessica would quickly go over to him and praise him endlessly. Be it breathing, brushing his hair, or just anything of the sort, Jessica would immediately attach herself to him like a deranged fan. Staring at Jessica in the distance, Melissa took off her glasses and massaged her forehead. She hated to admit it, but this girl was more annoying than Ren. Something Melissa had never thought was humanly possible. Ren, you've found an opponent. Chapter 214, Dungeon Trials, 3. If I'm not wrong, those are black-shelled scorpions. John pointed out as he looked into the distance. I nodded my head. They indeed seemed to be black-shelled scorpions. Black-shelled scorpions were ranked monsters. They were named as such because of the black shell that coated their outer layer. They were generally the size of an adult's thigh, and they were renowned for their powerful stingers that had a strong paralyzing effect. How many points was that again? Should be about 3 per kill. Standing by the side, Asim responded. Nodding his head, John looked at Melody, who was next to Aaron. How many monsters within the vicinity? Closing her eyes, using her skill, Melody calmly responded, I only feel 12 entities in front of us. So they should all be black-shelled scorpions. Great, then that means we can secure 36 points. Yup. So how should we go about this? The black-shelled scorpion's method of attack was quite simple. Incapacitate the prey with their stinger and then kill them with their sharp claws. What made them especially troublesome was their tough outer layer that was hard to crack. In short, within a short period of time, they couldn't be killed easily. Fortunately, we had John with us. He was a great meat shield. As long as he tanked, given enough time, we could easily crack the outer layer. And John knew this. I'll do the tanking, you guys get rid of them. He then patted his chest. I can more or less resist poisons. Having trained for all sorts of situations like this, John was indeed immune to most poisons. Unless they were extremely strong ones, he could continue defending without needing to worry about getting poisoned. I see, as long as we keep the scorpions in check, we shouldn't be able to face any problems. Aaron nodded in agreement. She also believed this was the best strategy. No, this strategy won't work. After subtly touching my chin, I shook my head. We 6 were definitely enough to kill a black-shelled scorpion. But what worried me was the fact that there wasn't just one scorpion. Can I say something? What? After a bit of thought, I decided to voice out my concern. Instantly, everyone's attention was gathered towards me. Frankly speaking, if we follow this strategy, we are going to die. With a solemn face, I broke the news. Though we wouldn't die literally, since the academy professors were hiding in the distance, we'd fail the class. Simply put, this strategy was not going to work. Huh? Do you even pay attention in class? If you properly paid attention, you'd know that this is the best possible strategy. Hearing what I had to say, Aaron and Melody aside, everyone's faces became dark. What are you talking about? If you want to say something, at least say something useful. No, I get that, but haven't you guys noticed? Noticed what? I shook my head and pointed in the distance. Towards where the scorpions were located. I then elaborated. That they scorpions aren't too far from each other. Once we create enough of a commotion when attacking one scorpion, will attract the other scorpions and our situation will turn into a 6 versus 12. Not that I doubt any of your abilities, but we can't handle 12 ranked monsters at the same time. Silence fell. Everyone's previous thoughts of fighting the scorpion disappeared. The ones who were trying to argue with me before didn't even look me in the eyes. Then what do you suggest? The first to break the silence was Aaron. To which I calmly responded. Actually, we can still follow the previous plan, but we'd need to target each scorpion individually. In short, we need to lure them to us instead of us going to them. With John tanking at the front and the others supporting, killing a scorpion was easy. As long as they weren't grouped together, this was going to be a breeze for us. But who's gonna bait them? Falling into thought, Erin lifted her head. Actually, I can do that. Placing my hand on the sheath of my sword, I raised my hand. In terms of crowd controlling and baiting, there was no better sword art than Ring of Vindication. Which, I still, unfortunately, have not managed to increase to the greater realm of mastery. I was missing the crucial step which I did not know the answer to. I did try asking Donna, but she told me she couldn't help me with regards to this matter as it did not involve scions. She did, however, tell me that she knew someone who could help me. That was about a week ago. In the end, I was still unable to break through. But that was fine. Since my current level was good enough for now. You can do that? Yes, I can. Okay, then let's go with that. Aaron came to a decision. Standing by the side, John's eyes narrowed slightly before he nodded his head too. Following John, everyone else also agreed. I'm okay with that too. Nothing to complain. Bunch of ass lickers. I instantly rolled my eyes. Despite my current fame, I was still not as famous as Aaron and John, who had been there for a long time. It was only natural that they paid more attention to their words.
Ha!
All right, let's start. Swoosh. I took out my sword and drew 3 circles in the air. Instantly, 3 translucent rings appeared before me. Noticing the rings, the others started discussing. What's that? Is that a skill or use sword art? It's obviously a sword art. Amongst the ones discussing, Aaron and John weren't part of them. Their attention was directed towards the rings. With me being one of the people who they had to look out for, they naturally had to pay extra attention. Noticing their solemn expression from the corner of my eyes, my lips tugged upwards. If only they knew that this was just merely a fraction of what I could do. Hup. Moving my finger upwards, the rings shot towards the scorpion in the distance. Watching my rings fly towards the nearest scorpion, I turned my head. Does anyone have a long-range attacking method? I do. The one to step up was Erin. Unsheathing her rapier, she asked, "What do you need me to do?" "Nothing much, I just want you to startle the scorpion." Very well. Erin took a stance. Hew. Pulling her reaper backward, Erin exhaled slightly. Her platinum blonde hair fluttered slightly and her rapier became dyed in green. She then thrust it forward. Hi-ah. Why-ying. Like a lightsaber, the rapier became dyed completely in green. Following her shout, a beam of light shot towards the scorpion in the distance. In a matter of seconds, it arrived before the scorpion and directly hit it in its outer shell. A muffled explosion rang, and the scorpion's enraged roar resounded across the plain. Scree! This naturally startled the other scorpions in the vicinity, but after not spotting anything nearby, they proceeded to ignore the rampaging scorpion.
Ha! Ha!
Was that good enough? Sure. Turning my head to the side, I nodded my head. Inwardly, I was shaking my head. At the moment, Erin's complexion was pale and her breathing was rugged. She looked exhausted. Do you think you can fool me? I obviously could tell that she was acting. Despite her ragged breathing and slightly pale face, she didn't actually use that much energy in that last attack. She just wanted to make herself look weaker. Mind games. Erin, are you okay? Are you exhausted? Let me do the rest. It's okay, I'm fine. Spotting the exhausted Erin, John naturally tried to comfort her. To that, Erin put on a brave face and reassured him she was fine. My mouth twitched at their display. Seriously? Swoosh. Moving my finger, I proceeded to ignore them and directly moved my rings around the scorpion. Scree. Spotting the rings, the scorpion became even more enraged. Swinging its claws and tails, it tried to attack the rings. Not that I'll let you. Moving my finger upwards, I'd command the rings to dodge the attacks quickly. Only when the scorpion was running in the opposite direction that I wanted it to go would I actually not avoid the scorpion, resulting in it directly hitting my ring. Scree. As soon as the scorpion hit the ring instantly broke. But it achieved its purpose as the scorpion quickly turned towards the opposite direction. Every time a ring broke, drawing a circle in the air, I replaced it. This repeated 3 times until the scorpion was finally within 10 meters of where we were hiding. Turning my head to the side, I whispered. Ready? MHM. Yes. Nodding their heads, everyone took a battle position. We had dragged the scorpion far enough from the other one so we no longer needed to worry about creating a commotion. Go. The first one to move was John. With a massive translucent shield before him, he jumped up and tackled the scorpion. Hew up. Scree. Caught off guard and colliding with the scorpion, John managed to push it back a couple of meters. Support me. With the attention of the scorpion on him, John took a knee and shouted. Everyone moved. Tackle its weak points, the joints. Like a streak of light, Aaron dashed before the scorpion and stabbed towards one of its joints. Asim and the others followed her example and tacked the joints. Scree. Coordinating with one another, everyone moved around the scorpion and tackled its joints. The scorpion shrieked in pain and became enraged. Its pincers and claws widely attacked everything in its vicinity. The battle strategy was simple. John aggroed the scorpion, whilst the others attacked its joints to hinder its movements. Wasn't the fastest method, but it was the most efficient one. Swoosh. Clank. Thanks. No problem, I've got you. Leisurely standing by the side, I naturally just used my rings to support them. Whenever they were in trouble, I'd aid them. That was just about all I did. Such carefree life, I love it. Helping by the side like an orchestra operator. I really liked this life.
Ha.
Thud. Finally, after 2 minutes of arduous fighting, the scorpion fell on the ground with a large thud. Aaron was the one who took the last hit. Phew, that was a tougher opponent than I thought. Keep with the great acting. Watching from the side, I clicked my tongue. The monster was only ranked. Aaron and John alone could have taken care of it. The only reason it took 2 minutes was that everyone held back. I did too, so I couldn't really complain. Ping. Points awarded, 3. Everyone's watches vibrated, and a notification appeared. Briefly glancing at his watch, John clapped his hands. All right, I guess we have to do this 11 more times. 3 hours passed since then. Thud. With a large thud, a monster fell onto the ground, and Aaron calmly extracted her reaper from the body of the monster. By her side, John approached her. How many does that make? I can't remember. Is that so? That was great, let's go to the next monster. At the rate we are going, we might get the first place. Let's do that. Sheathing her rapier, Aaron calmly nodded her head and headed in the direction of the next monster. Next to her were her teammates. Aaron, you were so amazing. As expected of you. John too, although I knew you were strong, I thought it was an exaggeration. Right after every fight, everyone would start complimenting her and John. The 2 biggest contributors. Aaron kept an indifferent face throughout the whole time. She was used to such behavior. The only one that stood out to her was the last youth in the group. Standing leisurely with his hands on his head, a youth with blue eyes walked towards the scorpion corpse. Randover, was it? Despite having seen him on the news, she didn't know too much about it. She did see him during the fight a couple of days ago, but that was just about all she could recall about him. It was a shocking fight that only made him more mysterious in the eyes of others. Was he strong or not? Apart from doing a couple of minor things with the rings, he did nothing shocking. The others did more. Nothing that would warrant his current fame. Should I just talk to him? Perhaps if she talked to him directly could figure something out. Right before entering, her brother told her to keep a close watch on John and Rin. This was partly why she didn't ignore John's annoying and blatant approaches. If not, she would have already dug her rapier into his skull.
Yeah.
I can't let my brother do all of the work. Just as Erin firmed herself to approach him, next to the scorpion, Ren's eyes lit up as he looked into the distance. It looks like the other teams are already fighting the boss monster. Chapter 215, Dungeon Trials, 4. 5-tusked mammoth? How can we defeat that? Kevin and his team looked down below them. An enormous elephant-looking creature with 5 tusks extending from its mouth leisurely walked across the area below them. 5-tusked mammoth, a ranked creature famous for its tremendous strength and tough outer layer. That's the boss monster, isn't it? Standing beside Kevin, a tall individual spoke. He had brown eyes and black hair. His name was Ray and he came from Lutwick Academy. It is. Feeling the tremendous pressure coming from the monster, Kevin knew without a doubt that that was the boss monster. Can I defeat it by myself? Despite being D-ranked himself, Kevin was unsure. Simply put, the pressure exuding from the monster was terrifying. Thinking along those lines, he decided to stay put. Let's wait for the other teams to come. Other teams?
Yeah.
At the moment, even if we can try to defeat the monster, without a doubt the other teams will come and may try to steal the kill from us. If once they were close to defeating the monster the other teams came and stole their kill, Kevin would be pretty pissed. Look, another team is here. Suddenly Ray pointed out as he looked towards the distance. Turning around, Kevin looked towards the direction of where Ray was pointing. That's Jean, and him. Kevin instantly spotted Jean standing in the middle of the group. Besides him, was Erin. Immediately his eyes narrowed. He did not have a good impression of Erin. From the small interaction he had with him, Kevin knew that he was targeting him. On the opposite side, sensing something, Erin turned his head around. A smile emerged on his lips. Look who we've got here. Erin's and Kevin's eyes interlocked. Sparks flew in the air. The tension between the two rose. Oh, I definitely remember writing this part. Whilst Kevin and Erin were busy looking at each other, on the opposite side, a black-haired blue-eyed youth looked at them with an amused expression. Writing what part? Watha. Startling Rin, Erin appeared next to him. Placing his hand on his chest, Rin waved his hand. Jesus, don't scare people like that. I'm sorry, but what were you talking about before? Oh, nothing. I was just referring to the notes I had made on the 5-tusked mammoth. Oh, what have you got? Erin instantly got curious. From what she figured out so far regarding Rin after interacting with him for a bit during the dungeon run was that he had good knowledge of the monsters within the dungeon. Like their weaknesses and behavioral patterns. I forgot. In response to Erin's question, Rin shook his head. Erin was left speechless as a result. What? It doesn't really matter anyway. Noticing her reaction, Rin rolled his eyes. We're aiming to steal kill from the others. No point in fighting it ourselves. Jumping off the rock he was on, Rin quietly moved closer to where the boss monster was. For now, all we really have to do is pretend to attack the monster like the others. Since our goal is killing it, we should naturally hold back once attacking. Arriving before a rather secluded area, Rin sat down and waited for his team to catch up. The reason why he wasn't attacking the 5-tusked mammoth now was because it would prove to be a fruitless endeavor. He had to wait for the other teams to gather before deciding on his next move. Fortunately, not long after, more and more teams had started to gather. The more teams gathered, the more the tensions grew. Staring at the 5-tusked mammoth below, everyone had a similar goal in mind. Kill the boss monster and emerge as number one. An hour had passed since then and a large explosion shook the surroundings. Boom. Baru hauheha. Keh. Ghh. Dust and debris flew everywhere as the five-tusked mammoth flew into a fit of rage. Wherever it went, students would be sent flying. Schwupp. Fortunately, whenever a student was injured severely, an instructor would quickly appear and take them away. Such scenes appeared everywhere. Everyone was given a special artifact beforehand, so in case they received a blow that could threaten their life it would activate and protect them. Unfortunately, whenever this happened, 50 points were deducted from the overall team's score. Swoosh. 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 On top of a small large rock, stood Amanda with her bow drawn. Whenever she pulled the string of her bow back a blue translucent arrow would appear. Like that she aimed for the mammoth below. Amanda was currently aiming for its eyes. That was its main weakness. Letting go of the string, the arrow disappeared. It soon reappeared in front of the mammoth who quickly closed its eyes. Clank! A large sound reverberated across the plain and Amanda's arrow disintegrated. Unbothered by this, Amanda once again drew her bow. Once again she released the arrow. Swoosh! Below her, Emma and Eleanor worked together with the other teams to deal as much damage as possible. Emma used her short swords whilst Eleanor stood at the back, casting different types of spells. Back me up. Like you would need my help. All sorts of colorful yet devastating spells flew towards the mammoth in the distance as Eleanor cast spells as if she was a machine gun. Occasionally Emma and Eleanor would bicker, but they worked well together as Emma stood at the front and Eleanor helped at the back. Sheeing. Next to them, Aaron and Kevin swiftly and deftly moved around the mammoth's lower area. Whenever their swords slashed, blood spilled. They were aiming for the joints and legs of the monster. Unfortunately, due to how tough the outer layer of the monster was, the best they could do was cause the monster to bleed. But that was enough. Baru hauheha. Slowly but surely the mammoth was slowing down. Its movements had started to become more and more predictable. Everyone could feel it. They were close to killing it. Hua. Hup. Seeing this, everyone stopped holding back. Different colored hues enveloped the surroundings as everyone attacked more fiercely. Emma's attack became more fierce, Kevin's attack became more powerful, Amanda's arrow became faster. Everyone was going in for the kill. Standing not far from them, a faint smile appeared on my lips. Go on, keep lowering its health. Do the heavy job and leave the light work for me. Since the very beginning, I had not moved. There was a reason for this. It's because I had a plan. My plan was quite simple. Just when everyone was about to deal their last blow, I would quickly send a ring in front of them to block their attacks. Though it won't completely block their attacks, it would be enough to delay them. I would then swoop in and take the kill. Just imaging the faces of everyone once they see this makes me chuckle. The smile on my face deepened. Just thinking of Kevin's face once he realized that I stole his kill. I couldn't wait. It's almost dead. Amanda, use your strongest move. Eleanor, help me. Looking at the five-tusked mammoth and sensing something, Emma suddenly shouted. Following her call, the mammoth roared towards the sky as one of its legs gave out. Baru hauheha. Nodding her head, a tremendous amount of power gathered towards Amanda. Looking at each other, Eleanor and Emma quickly separated from each other. Where do you think you're going? What are you doing, Emma? Stopping before Kevin, Emma smiled sweetly. Two short words appeared in her hands. Sorry, but I, unfortunately, have to hold you back here. How about this? I'll let you go once Amanda is done. You okay with that?
Ha!
Is this how you want to play? Kevin instantly got the gist of the situation. They were trying to hold him back. Emma's smile deepened as she didn't deny it. You sure got that right. You give me no choice. Instantly, Kevin's pressure intensified manifolds as the red hue around him shrouded everything within a 10-meter radius. Let's see for how long you can hold me back. Boom. Not far from Kevin and Emma, a similar situation was unfolding as Eleanor stood before Aaron and her brother Nicholas. Sorry guys, but I'll have to hold you back. Oh. So you're resorting to this trick as well? Stepping up, Nicholas smiled. Looking towards Kevin in the distance, he pretty much got the gist of the situation as well. In response to Nicholas's question, Eleanor nodded her head. Unfortunately, yes. She had discussed this with Emma beforehand. Aside from Kevin and Aaron, the most threatening of all the people were the Lanefall twins. She opted to go for the Lanefall twins. Aaron was too hard to handle for the current her. I see, so you want to let your partner take the shot whilst you hold back all the possible competitors. What an interesting plan. That's exactly it, so give it your best shot at getting through me. Staring at the Lanefall twins before her, Eleanor's hands became engulfed in flames. In response, the Lanefall twins took out their weapons and stood back to back with each other. A tremendous white hue emanated from their body. Well.
Shh.
*T. Feeling the pressure from the twins, Eleanor was starting to regret her decision. Fortunately, she only had to hold them back. Thus, increasing the intensity of the flames in her hands, she attacked.
Ha!
What a sight! Within a 100-meter radius of the mammoth, similar situations were unfolding. Everyone tried to hold back the strongest person of the other group whilst they had one member go for the kill. Fortunately, I wasn't one of those people targeted. Guess everyone thought I wasn't as high of a priority. Was slightly offended, but since it worked in my favor I guess it was fine. Looks like it's about time I moved. Unsheathing my sword, I prepared to enact my plan to kill the mammoth. I was going for the kill. However, right before I could move, a silver streak of light dashed towards the 5-rusked mammoth. It was so fast that barely anyone could detect it. Why-ying. Following this, a small hole appeared on the 5-tusked mammoth. Thud. With a large thud, the mammoth fell to the ground. Silence prevailed over the surroundings as everyone stood motionless and stopped whatever they were doing. Be it Aaron, Emma, Kevin, Amanda, or anyone present. Everyone stopped whatever they were doing. Instantly, everyone's eyes were directed towards one individual.
Ha!
Standing on top of the monster was Jin's cold figure. With a dagger still in his hand, Jin wiped the blood off of his face. Turning his head slightly, Jin hopped off Mammoth's corpse. Ping! Within the silence, the only sound that echoed was the sound of his smartwatch vibrating. Jin didn't even bother looking at it. Without saying a word he left. He came as fast as he went. What? Watching Jin's figure leave, I stood rooted on my spot. Multiple thoughts crossed my mind. When did he get so strong, and did he just steal my kill? Chapter 216, Cleaning Up 1. 12 p.m. Outside of the portal gates of the dungeon trials.
Beep.
And that marks the end of the trial. With a stopwatch in his hand, the instructor in charge of the dungeon trials announced the ending of the class. Following this, all of the students inside of the dungeon stopped whatever they were doing and exited the dungeon. Whoosh! Whoosh! It was only after 10 minutes had passed that everyone had finally exited the dungeon. Doing a head count, the instructor nodded his head and tapped on the tablet in his hands. All right, that seems to be everyone. I'll quickly post the team results online. Ping! Ping! Instantly everyone's watch vibrated. Equals. First place, Team 23. Second place, Team 15. Third place, Team 7. Third place, huh? Having just exited the portal, I suddenly felt my watch vibrate. Turning my wrist, I stared at the leaderboards. I was instantly surprised by my group standings. Despite not having killed the boss monster, we had actually managed to secure third place. Not bad. You've got third place? That's pretty good. Arriving next to me, Kevin looked at the rankings on his watch. His team got second. Not as good as you. You've got second place. It doesn't really matter since second place doesn't really get anything. Kevin shrugged his shoulders. Only first-placed individuals got the extra points. Second place and below only had boasting rights. Not that it mattered, since he wasn't someone that liked to boast. You're right. By the way, when did Jean become so strong? Suddenly Kevin switched the topic. Recalling the moment when Jean beat the 5-tusked mammoth, Kevin's face couldn't help but become serious. During that moment, Kevin was actually able to see Jin's last attack. Albeit only slightly, he knew that Jean right now was leagues above the Jean of the past. Jean?
Yeah.
I feel like Jean has become incredibly strong somehow. Pausing, Kevin stared at Jean in the distance. I too looked at him. At this moment, Jean was the center of attention. Having killed the boss monster right under everyone's eyes without the use of any trickery, he naturally gathered a lot of the people's attention. He's completely different from how he was supposed to be. Despite all of the attention he was getting, he remained indifferent. From being this arrogant young master to this cold and indifferent one. It was safe to say the Jean from the novel was no longer here. The Jean right now was much stronger than back in the novel. In fact, not just by a little. No. He was leagues above the Jean from the novel. I wasn't the only one who felt Jin's incredible growth. Kevin felt this, and so did Aaron, who was supposed to have humiliated him during this trial. Despite Jean not having accumulated as many points as Aaron in the beginning, by killing the 5-tusked mammoth, he left Aaron in the dust by gaining 1,000 plus points. Staring at Aaron, whose face was incomparably dark, I knew that he no longer cared about Kevin anymore. He had switched target. His target was now Jean. He wanted to repay him back for today's humiliation. Once again, another change occurred. Enough about Jean, wanna grab some dinner? Suddenly, I felt a slight tap on my shoulder. It was Kevin. After a bit of thought, I nodded my head.
Yeah.
I might as well. Where to? Let's go to the school canteen. Sounds good. Despite my surprise, I wasn't unhappy with this development. No, it was quite the opposite in fact. The stronger Jean became, the brighter the future was. He was after all one of the people that was supposed to defeat the Demon King in the future. Taking one last glance at Jean in the distance as I headed to the canteen with Kevin, I smiled in relief. This isn't too bad. In a way, this eased some of the burdens I had. 11 p.m. Inside of a private training area. Hoo. Sitting crossed-legged in the middle of a training room, was Jin's topless figure. Closing his eyes, he exhaled, and turbid air escaped from his mouth. Everyone has tasted defeat in their life. Your father, your grandfather, the current strongest person in the human domain. No one in this world is exempt from defeat. A calm yet firm voice echoed inside of Jin's mind. It was his father's voice. Countless great warriors face defeat. What matters is not how they lose, it's how they react to the loss. Will they accept the defeat and move on, or will they look back to that moment until the end of their life? Will you truly let that one defeat dictate your future? Like a morning alarm, the words rang inside of Jin's mind continuously. It was as though his mind had been smashed by a hammer repeatedly. His mind became completely numb. Don't let yourself drown in needless thoughts. Grow up more. Get up and move, as you always did. Although we put a lot of hope in you, what does it matter to you about what others think? It's your life to live, not ours nor the others. Stop being pathetic and realize that what truly matters is yourself, not the others. Your true opponent is not whoever beat you, but you yourself. If you can't beat yourself, what does it matter if you beat every single person in the world? The words stopped there. Those were the words his father had told him once he had locked himself inside of the training room for 2 months straight without stopping. It was right after the Hallberg incident. At first, Jin didn't really understand the true meaning behind those words. It was only after the Codebreaker trials that Jin truly understood what those words meant. Throughout the Codebreaker trails, the only thing he did was listen to Ren. Like a puppet, he moved as Ren had asked him. He could clearly remember how he felt during that time. It was as though he was trapped inside of a metal cage filled with water bound to thick metal chains. It felt suffocating. Listening to someone else's commands disgusted him to no end. It was against everything he had worked for since he was young. Yet, despite him knowing this, he did not protest once. He couldn't bring himself to protest against the one guy that had humiliated and defeated him in the past. It was then that Jin realized. The problem was not Ren, but him. There was nothing stopping him from rebuking Ren's orders, yet he didn't. There was this seed that he had implanted inside of his mind that made him listen to whatever Ren said. After this, he finally understood. He had subconsciously placed himself below Ren. It was not Ren that had placed him below, but he himself. Jin Horton. Only after Jin came to such a realization that he was finally able to understand the meaning behind his father's words. Stop being pathetic and realize that what truly matters is yourself, not the others. Your true opponent is not whoever beat you, but you yourself. Like the morning bells of a church, the words continuously told inside of his mind. From that moment, Jin realized what he had to do. He had to stop giving a fuck. That's right. Who cares about Ren, Kevin, or anyone else? At the end of the day, everyone is different. Even if I am weaker now, it doesn't mean I'll be weaker in the future. No longer did he care about Ren, Kevin, and the others. No longer did he waste needless time caring about his pride or the nonsensical bubble he created around himself to make him feel superior to others. He just stopped caring. The only thing that mattered to him was himself. As long as he kept increasing his strength, what did everything else matter? It was only after he realized this that his strength saw a significant rise. With his mind no longer clogged, Jin felt as though everything was clear to him. Training became less laborious, and everything started to flow more smoothly. He felt reborn.
Huh?
Suddenly, Jin opened his eyes. He screamed out loud and a wave of air spread out from his body. Like a gust of wind, everything near him flew away. Swoosh! Suddenly, Jin's muscles bulged and hot steam escaped from his body. The room quickly became engulfed by the hot steam.
Ha! Ha!
Once the steam died down, Jin's topless figure stood in the middle of the room. His breathing was rugged and sweat dripped all over his body. Once his breathing calmed down, Gene slowly stood up and walked towards a nearby mirror. Staring at his body in the mirror, Gene brushed his damp hair up, revealing his two deep green eyes.
Huh?
Is this D rank? After months of intensive training, Gene had finally broken through to rank. Oddly enough, he felt nothing. He knew that compared to moments before, his strength was superior, but it's all right, I guess. Without celebrating his breakthrough, Gene walked back to the training ground. Picking up two large metal bracelets, he put them on. Why would he celebrate for a measly D rank promotion? Clank! Clank! KHHH. The moment Gene put on the metal bracelets, his knees almost gave out. Clenching his teeth, Gene placed both of his hands on the ground and did a handstand. With firm eyes, Gene slowly lowered his body and counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He was to repeat this until his muscles gave out. This was what Gene had been doing for the past few months. Train, train, and train even more. There was no need to celebrate the fact that he had broken through to D rank. He had realized that only once he truly surpassed himself and reached the top he was allowed to celebrate. Before that, nothing else mattered. If the Gene of today was weaker than the Gene of yesterday, he had failed.